What is up, everybody? CP and SJ with you for another week of Every Day We're Covering. We talk wagering, world of sports, and throwing a little fun in there for you as well. March Madness getting into full swing here this week. We had some conference tournaments fire up this weekend. We'll talk a little bit about that. We've got some other stories from the gambling world, but a lot of hoops talk for you here today. That'll be kind of the main focus for you. SJ, I know you've been out and about trying to enjoy the region here a little bit, and I'm sure it's nice to, I guess, see other parts of the countryside.
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, I guess depends on which day you caught me in. Going en route to somewhere is always better than the return trip home, especially when the things don't go your way in the end. So that kind of is always a tough drive after a loss. But yeah, got out on the road a little bit. Clear sunny days, no snow, so can't complain about that all too much.
Yeah, we're melting that friggin' snow down fast and furious here in our parts. We've got a little bit hanging around left here because we did get a lot recently, but it is going by the wayside quickly, and I enjoy that. They actually anticipate maybe some record high temperatures here at the beginning of the week, so we'll see how it goes. It's been a wild ride here lately, that's for sure, but that's what we expect this time of year. We always used to joke when I was still in the radio business, come girls state basketball, you knew shit was going to hit the fan weather-wise. It was a given every year. And sure enough, last week that was the case. I had a little blizzard fly through while that was going on. So that's all wrapped up this weekend. And, yeah, we're now getting into some good sunshine here. So we'll enjoy that. We're getting right into things. Let's start off, though, of course, with what's lubricating the voices here today. SJ, I think you picked up one of our favorites, but a little twist from one of our favorites.
Yeah, I mean it's of course we're back with the good folks at Yingling, and the thing is they don't have a lot of in a good way. They don't offer a lot because they just kind of this is what we do and we do it well and that's what we have. But they do have a few varieties which you've talked about. Of course, they typically just drink the regular lager or the flights. Are pretty those go down pretty smooth. But we did the Hershey Porter last year, the chocolate porter they make, and I was able to get my hands on the black and tan they make, and oh man, it's giving that porter a run for its money. Like, of course, the mixing the porter with just a lager or any other type of beer, but pre-mixed, so you never know kind of how that's going to take. But of course, to no surprise, it came out as well as you could imagine with a brand like that. So definitely, it surprised me. I'm taking it easy here tomorrow, Monday morning. Got to get back up in the swing of things. But it is one of those that you could probably handle a few and it wouldn't be too crazy on you. It's nothing because when you're talking porter, sometimes a couple three and you're feeling a little bit in the guts. But this one, you could probably be okay with a little bit more if you had a long day, maybe hitting the links or firing up the grill, something like that. You could probably take a few of these down and still be doing okay there.
All right. Yeah, sounds good. Anxious to be able to try that sometime. The one that I pulled down here was when I was picking up that variety 6-pack here recently, and this one obviously perfect for the time of year. The fine folks at Single Speed Brewery over in the Waterloo region, they have the tap room in Des Moines now too, but. They produce some pretty good beers, some stuff that I really like, and I saw this one and it's like, oh man, this is awesome. I didn't know that they were doing this, and I think this is a recent thing, but they've got one called Tiny Dancer, and it's got the little bracket going with the basketball on the can, and it's specifically brewed for this time of year for the big dance. I'll give them a little plug here. Usually not going to go into this much detail, but I thought this was kind of cool. On the can, it just says. Sometimes it makes sense to pay special attention to the little guys. March Madness is definitely one of those occasions. Brewed with bracket busters in mind, this offering is powerful in hop character, yet gentle in ABV. It's a survivor. It's an advancer. It's Tiny Dancer. So I appreciate their little catch here. And I did see another one too. I didn't get it, but I'm going to try to track it down here before the big dance officially starts, because they do have one also called the Big Dance. So this one, the Tiny Dancer, is a pale ale. And then the big dance is a double IPA that they have that's, of course, on the same basketball motif. So he brewed for the tournament. So shout out to Single Speed for feeling festive this time of year. And yeah, I'm digging this Tiny Dancer. This is the first couple of swigs I've had of it.
Yep.
But it's, yeah, I don't know. It's got a little bite to it. There's something a little going on here with some different hop varieties. Probably, I guess, for most people, if you're not, like we really aren't huge hop guys, uh, probably not be most folks' favorites if you're not like into that, getting that little extra hop bite. But for having one or two, I like it. Good beer. Good. Of course, you can't go wrong with the theme. So I'm going good with that.
Well, as I say, I appreciate the effort. I sound like a Dick Vitale or Raftery special there. That little, little stanza you read there. That was pretty creative. So I give them credit for that. They put some effort into it, so you can always appreciate that as well.
Yeah. What I think is also awesome, and I don't know how they did this, and I'm guessing it cost them a couple extra bones, but the front of the can has the the basketball look to it with the lines going across, so it looks like you're looking at a section of the basketball, and it actually has the kind of raised, bumpy leather feel of the ball.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. I don't know how the hell they did that, but
Well, see, there you go. When you get done drinking, now you can go ahead and shoot it in your little waste basket.
exactly.
Hit the three from deep from the
Get
corner pocket.
get the office Olympics going here. Hell yeah. So yeah, all right. So that's getting us ready to go. And speaking of Tiny Dancer, that's kind of why I got it, because this is what this week and next week kind of are. They're kind of the tiny dance before the big dance, because you've got all these conference tournaments that teams are playing. We've had some good ones, a couple that have already wrapped up. So I'll mention the teams that have won here so far, and we'll talk about that. A couple of these two were part of what we gave to you earlier this week, is with our picks as well, because I took a look at a few of the early tournaments. There are a couple of them that aren't quite finished that I talked about, but I do know results of a couple of them, so I can give you a little bit of detail on that. I'll start with of course, what's been our fun, local talking point here recently, the fine folks there at Omaha, the old Mavericks in the Summit League. They are actually playing right now as we record for the championship game in the Summit League Conference Tournament. But due to a little bit of a technicality, they already know that they're going to be in the NCAA tournament because the team that they're playing in their conference tournament championship game is St. Thomas, and they're kind of like UNO in the fact that Omaha just recently went through the D1 jump process here the past few years. St. Thomas is doing that now. So as you may know, some of the goofy rules that happen in the NCAA, for whatever reason, when you jump up to the D1 level, you have I think it's a 2-year period. It's a 1 or 2 year period. I can't remember, that they exclude you from postseason play. So St. Thomas is ineligible to make it to the tournament, even if they were to win this game tonight. So UNO or Omaha, whatever you want to refer them to now, is in the big dance. So for them, good. Obviously, they want to still win this game tonight, but pretty awesome that they made it.
Yeah, of course. I mean, hopefully a win. We don't need any asterisks or anybody kind of trying to rain on their parade, because that is a pretty big accomplishment. I don't know the exact year off the top of the head, but it hasn't been long since they made that transition. And I know it's a little different in basketball because you can kind of win your way in, which I guess maybe that's more difficult when you look at it that way. But it is it's a challenge. It's a big step up. So that's cool. And I mean, they can't control what the other teams do or what the other technicalities are. So I mean, if they're in, they're in to me. And I to talk about this, these regulations, it is kind of a little ridiculous that that's in place still. Like, I'm sure the spirit of it was something way different. When it was written or enacted, it's not, maybe doesn't correlate to the way things are these days, because we've seen across all collegiate sports where teams are, whether you're transferring or a new coach or whatever, you're starting from scratch and you're just kind of picking up and running from where you left off the last season. So I don't think there's that transition or adjustment, even if you're moving up to a different level or down, that there used to be, where you need to have these things in place. I think if you're going to go up, and especially when you're moving up, what like what advantage would they have? It seems like it'd be the opposite. Like, if they were going down, I could see, well, you got to wait because you have players that are be playing at a higher level than what you're going to. So you might have technically better players. But the other way, you'd probably be at a disadvantage if anything. So seems a little strange for that to still be in place. But regardless, let's just hope Omaha gets the win. And I'm don't know that I'll pick them, but I'll definitely be rooting for them. It'd be cool to see them, who knows, win a game or something. To be a hell of a story. Then destroy some more trash cans while we're at it, and maybe they're just telling people they should recycle more. Maybe that's the whole message here. I don't know. Maybe there's like a hidden meaning that everyone's just looking past.
they got a backdoor NIL deal going on here with
Yeah,
some recycling company. Yeah, waste management's on their
there you
team.
go. Yeah.
It's pretty funny. Yeah, and yeah, like you said, you don't want to have any thing hanging over getting there. So hopefully they do win this game here tonight. Um, I'm getting some. I guess from what I'm finding here, because this has changed here recently, just like everything else. Apparently, all these goofy rules that are out there. It was a 4-year postseason ban for D2 schools moving to D1. What I was just reading here a second ago, though, is saying that no longer is like a requirement, but sometimes conferences have a little bit of their own requirements too for how long. So that
I
may be
mean,
the case here. I don't know.
well, that actually kind of makes sense with realignment, and that type of things, and teams leaving. Maybe it's a kind of a something put in place to make them stick around a little bit longer, where they not getting the full payouts and full revenue from the conference. So that would actually make a little more sense.
Yeah. And for Omaha, they were under that old rule. So it was a 4-year transition period for them. They started, it said, in the 2011-2012 season. So it wasn't until 2016 that they were eligible to be part of anything. Seems like it hasn't been that long, but
No, I was just said that. Yeah, that surprised me when you said that. That's
yeah.
over pushing. Well, they're still getting under a decade, so that's pretty decent.
Yeah, it's pretty cool still. So, awesome stuff for them. Great, run that they've had this year. Obviously, weren't expected, to do what they're doing. So it's always cool when teams are overcoming and making those kind of waves in their leagues. Yeah, and they've played great so far here in this tournament. And like we said, they're in action right now as we record this bad boy. That was my pick, by the way, on the little picks we did earlier. I said Omaha was probably going to win this thing. I gave South Dakota a chance, and they actually were in the semis, but they fell to St. Thomas. So, not feeling too bad about those little selections for you. Moving on to another tournament that has been going on. I actually just wrapped up earlier here today. The one that usually we're kind of familiar with this time of year, this early week, is the old Arch Madness, the Missouri Valley Conference tournament going on in St. Louis. And as expected and as I selected as well, Drake is the champion. They did run to the title here today. They won their last game yesterday was like a 7-point victory, so not like super impressive, but they ran away from Bradley pretty good today. 63-48 ends up being the final. They were up by 4 at half and then just really kind of, increased it as the game went along there at the second half. Bennett Sturts, their star player this year, led the way with 24 points. So a good performance from them. 30 wins on the season for Drake now with that win today. That's crazy for, especially for a program like that, yeah, they've had good teams and good seasons, but it just doesn't seem like it's ever been. I mean, they've had one season, I think, that's been quite to that level, that they played that well as far as a win-loss record is concerned. But especially when you had, a big change. Like, you got a new head coach. He's come up from a different program. Your other guy's in the coaching for a Big 12 team now, and he took his son with him, who was one of your best players. So you were overcoming that too. So just, I think, a hell of a job by Drake, obviously, to put this thing together and have the kind of season that they're having here so far.
I'm sure they're going to be a lot of people's. I don't even know if you're kind of upset because of that many wins, or even an underdog. But a smaller team, you can still consider it a mid-major. But they're definitely going to be on a, they'll probably get to that first weekend for sure, and maybe even make a run there and to the Sweet 16 on a lot of brackets, just because. How can you look past that? And the way they play too is a little bit. I don't know if you want to say it, just compared to other teams, it's probably not what you're going to see on a nightly basis. So that could be an advantage, or it couldn't be. It just depends on if you're good at what you do, you're probably going to go pretty far. And it is kind of. I remember being like really kind of being the focus. And I know they've lost some teams and they don't have the, maybe the same setup that they used to have. But man, that Arch Manage just kind of be a big deal. It's make it fall a little bit under the radar with just the I guess whatever TV partners and of course it's a money thing like everything. But it was always kind of a you're like, oh, we're ready to go. March, that was kind of the start of everything. Always
Yeah.
they almost had that first weekend to themselves. There wasn't a lot of other conferences that were doing their tournaments this weekend. Then for the most part, maybe them and then like the Ivy League or some of the
Hmm.
East Coast smaller ones or the MEAC or the SWAC.
Hmm.
They might have it over in that first weekend, but it was kind of all about the arch there. And I know it's everything changes, different teams, but it was that was kind of a fun deal. Those are the things that for me that with the new conferences, the things that kind of are the bad side of it. The negative is like you kind of lose some of those cool I guess I mean call them traditions. I guess
Yeah.
they end up going away just over time. But either way, still I think Drake could probably make a decent run here. They have a pretty solid squad.
Yeah, you're exactly right about that kind of lost nostalgia of it a little bit, and I think part of that too is like obviously the whole media coverage of all of it's changed so much too. Like some of those conferences you never even saw their games. Like it was just we couldn't even do it. So it's so different now that everything's on. You kind of get everything mushed in there, and then yeah, the changes in the conferences now. Obviously, some of them have moved around because of different team structures or just trying to fit in a different media window. I think a lot of them, it's all kind of been thrown up in the air, so it is different, but still cool. I think that the Missouri Valley's trying to keep what they can of what they still are, and still play that this week traditionally and have it done by today, which is kind of unique too. Um, the other conference that I did talk about in our picks earlier this week is actually kind of just getting started here today. It's kind of a goofy schedule, if you ask me, but they're playing quarterfinals today for the West Coast Conference tournament. Washington State, San Francisco have a late one coming up later on here tonight. Pepperdine, Santa Clara are in action as we record here right now, so that's kind of getting underway. In my picks, I had Gonzaga being the one that's going to win that thing. Hope that was my selection. We'll see. They've been playing better lately, but there are certainly some really strong contenders. San Francisco, Santa Clara, St. Mary's all being in there, and then of course you mentioned too the ones that you're not used to, and this is a real wrinkle. Washington State, Oregon State, not the traditionally teams in that league either. So yeah, there's a lot of difference going on with that one. So that's underway as well. We'll keep our eye on that. Just to let you know too, I wanted to throw out there because there are a couple of other teams that have already got their automatic bid into the NCAA tournament. Just so you know, the ones that are in so far. The Atlantic Sun Conference tournament is done. Lipscomb is the team that got in there. Big South was won by High Point, so they are in. And then Southern Illinois Edwardsville is in out of the Ohio Valley Conference, so they are all winners there as well. Not your necessarily traditional teams that you think of. A couple of them, I think, here and there they've been in the big dance, but some different ones. And I think that's going to be kind of the theme here too. I did see some of the early on like looks at the bracket. They were talking about maybe the bubble wasn't quite as wacky this year as it has been in other years, but the odd thing is like it's not necessarily some of the traditional teams that you think either out of some of these leagues. There's kind of going to be some new flavor, I think, with some new teams that haven't made it. I mean, obviously Omaha's one of them, but then you've got some others in there too from some of these other conferences that are kind of having a one-off good year type of situation. So I think that's always fun as well. It's good to have new blood, good to see new faces, new teams, hear new stories. I mean, that's also what makes the tournament a lot of fun to watch.
Well, yeah, I mean, even some of the regulars that you are used to seeing aren't in the same position that they're used to being in either. You look like a Kansas,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to be a lower seed compared to what they're used to being, or even like a North Carolina, they're probably not going to be in. So like there's just a lot of even with the I guess blue bloods or the typical entries or the teams you're used to seeing. There's not going to be a lot of them either, or they're going to be in a maybe an underdog role. So that will kind of add to that interest of new teams or just a new. I guess I mean you're gonna. It's a lot different being an 11 seed than a 3 seed. I mean that kind of goes without saying, but it's just you do win that. Maybe you're the better just because you've been there before and done it. But then now you're going up against a top four team on your side of the bracket, and it's not. You can't sleepwalk your way through 2 or 3 rounds like some of those teams may used to be doing. And you see those close games where you know, whoever the team is, the underdogs, a Bucknell or something is like pushing them to the last minute and they end up pulling it out, or
Hmm.
when do that in the second round and you're playing against a Louisville or something this year, or a friggin' St. John's, and you're probably gonna be going home.
Yeah, yeah, no kidding. Yeah, and um, it is one of those deals that usually only works for like Michigan State. They can do that. They can still be a 13-11 and win. That's no problem for them. But yeah, some of these other teams, no, you don't have that type of experience. And I did hear that. Not that I didn't know, but like the just hearing it from someone the other day was like mind blowing a little bit to me, because they were talking about the Kansas situation, and obviously we discussed on last week's show how odd it was that they were releasing statements about not playing well. But the first time under Bill Self that they will be lower than a 4 seed, they've never been lower than a 4 seed in the NCAA tournament. That's insane. Like you would think here and there, like most programs, even the good ones have like that one year where like they don't make the tournament at all, but to make it and to be that highly thought of year in and year out, that's a hell of an accomplishment. I'm not gonna lie, even though I hate the a-holes, but
Well, that's a lot of it is like why people thought he was probably going to retire the last few seasons, because there's not much else you can do except go backwards and kind of have everything fall apart, and you just kind of leave with everything on fire, which is not intentional. But at some point, it's like you kind of max out, and then when you throw in the fact of with your health problems and things like that, these stats keep coming up and see all these accomplishments he's had, but he's still just it's not enough.
yeah, pretty crazy stuff. Um, we'll keep an eye, obviously, on how things shake out for some of those teams, and what happens here with with Kansas, and how they play once they get in a different position like that. So that will be interesting to watch. But yeah, some of these other teams, like, yeah, going to be very odd. Not to see a Carolina in the NCAA tournament, like just stuff like that. It's going to be different, but hopefully fun at the same time. We'll get to see some other teams, and hopefully ones that are have the right personnel to make it interesting to watch. That's what it's all about here at the end of the day. So coming up this week, we'll get really hot and heavy, obviously, into all the major conference tournaments. I was going to give us a chance to maybe just to kind of mention a couple of teams that we maybe think are going to be ones that could, maybe impact themselves a little bit here this week. But one thing, a couple of things that I did want to touch on here related to the conference tournaments as well. First off, and I didn't preface you on this before we started here, but this came up as I was watching the game that you were attending here today, and it just absolutely like boiled my blood immediately. And not that I didn't know it, but like again, it's becoming a reality here. And now at the end of the season, this is the problem with these ridiculous conferences that we've created, and the fact that I just think it's absolutely asinine that teams are not going to play in their conference tournaments. Like, what in the hell are we doing? Like, that ruins the whole point of what's fun about college basketball, is that every single team has that chance to make the NCAA tournament, and now we've just shit on it.
Well, yeah, and I'm not gonna make excuses because you deserve what you get at some point. But I mean, the fact that you're like the whole point of the conference tournament is to be able to play your way in.
Mm-hmm.
So it's for the teams. It's like, well, even if you have a bad season, or maybe you put together at the end of the year, because basketball is one of those sports where, I mean, you can go on a run or you can have a bad month, and it really puts you behind the eight ball, and you really kind of just make up ground. And if it's like a one and done type thing, which that's what makes the tournament so interesting and why people like it so much, is because anything can happen on any given day.
Mm-hmm.
But to not be able to like have that chance to, maybe what's it, 3 or 4 or 5 games, I guess, or somehow big some of these conferences are. But you put 3 or 4 or 5 games together, like that says something right there. That says that you're a quality enough team to be involved with a field of 68. So yeah, I didn't care for that either. Like when they first announced that, and found out that was a thing, I'm like, I get that the teams don't really have much of an argument for the fact that they had a losing record in conference, but the whole point of the system or the way it's been set up for this long, and if you're going to include 68, why not let everybody just have the same? dude, you can do a bracket with 18 teams. Like it's been done before.
Yeah, yeah,
Not like it's some like feat like, oh, I don't think we can do this.
yeah,
That you're doing a bracket of 68 teams, but you can't do a bracket of 18
yeah.
teams. Like that to me was what's the stupid why it makes you look dumb. It's like you're not it's not like you anything that I get sometimes with football and other sports. It's like, well, this isn't really possible to play like 7 games in like a 5 week span. That makes sense because football is a different game. But for friggin' basketball, where you're literally going to do the same thing for like 3 weeks straight, I don't know how you can't figure out how to play bracket with 18 teams, even if they have to play in the afternoon. Or I know it's a TV deal, so maybe they don't get the coverage that you think they should. But either way, they should have a chance to definitely play it on the court. I agree with you on that one.
Yeah, it's just crazy. I mean, the Big 12's kind of got a similar situation with so many teams involved, but yet they've got all the way down to the 16, 15 seeds. They're all playing. They figured it out somehow. I mean, yeah, it gets goofy with weird numbers, but like you said, there's a way to figure it out. So to me, you should absolutely do that. The other thing too, like one of the big arguments that we've been having here in the last year, and or not arguments, but the idiots that like to ruin college sports have been talking about is they want to expand this tournament to begin with. Well, then what's the argument for not having the extension of the tournament like we have with the conference tournaments? Essentially for some of these teams, that is the start of the NCAA tournament because it is their chance, like we just said. So it just seems absolutely ridiculous. And those are the tournaments, too, that we as fans remember. Like, we remember those teams winning 5 games in 5 days. We don't remember the Kansas winning the Big 12 tournament because they were supposed to. Like,
Right. Or, yeah, winning by like 20 points every game. Like, oh, this is so interesting.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, just running through the league. Yeah.
Well, and you look at last year, like, who's to say, too, one of our Final Four teams in NC State, they might not even have made their conference tournament. Like, that's just the proven point right there, I guess. Speaking of, their coach has already been fired after one season a year later. Crazy shit there, too.
Moves fast, yeah. life moves fast.
But, yeah, I don't know. That just got me. Like, and when I'm watching that, it's like, what the hell? I mean, and these are two teams that, it's not like they've won, 2 games. Like, they're 500. They're not, like, and especially because the announcers were talking about. And to me, that's what it made it ridiculous, too. It's like, I don't think that these are two teams that aren't capable of doing that. Like, they were talking about how Nebraska a month ago was probably in the NCAA tournament and then just had a really shitty month, and now here they are, and they're not going to play in their conference tournament. To me, that just seems ridiculous. You don't give a team like that a chance. But anyways, I guess it is what it is. They'll continue to do what they want to do. Maybe it'll change, maybe it won't. But we know if we know anything, it's not going to be the same too far down the road because these things keep morphing. But anyways, that was my little side rant on that deal.
I mean, it's weird that you haven't heard more people kind of go out. I mean, I guess because the big mouths are going to be their teams are going to be sitting pretty, but it is kind of interesting. More people haven't kind of spoke up on that because it just kind of is counterintuitive to everything that the college basketball game's ever been about. It shouldn't be about timing of when you lose. It should just be about your whole body of work. Isn't that what they say? It's a whole resume deal with a blank resume crap that they show all the time and got all these metrics and all these analytics and all these whatever Ken Palm and Bartorvik and all this bull crap, whatever you want to put. And then but it's like, nah, we're just gonna you don't give as many chances as other team just for whatever reason. So,
yeah, it'll be interesting, I think, this week. Maybe if some of that does, if there is some more outcry, because maybe there's a lot of people that just didn't even realize it until now, and they're like, "Oh, when's my team going to play?" And the casual fan, like, "Oh, they're not playing in it. What the hell's that? What's going on there?" So I think there will be a little bit more people upset now that they see that coming to fruition. Other thing too that we were going to touch on real quick, and this is kind of related, I guess, is. There was a lot of talk, and I saw this. I think it was Van Pelt was talking to Lenardi one night, and he was kind of asking him because the fact that there wasn't as much going on like with the bubble side of it. He was kind of talking about seeding and he's like, do you really think that the committee looks much at these conference tournament games and gives it a good impact? Will that change? And he was basically like, well, no. He's like, unfortunately, in the past, they really haven't paid attention to it a whole lot, haven't gave much weight to it. And he's like, I don't think that that's going to change this year because they have a little bit more maybe time to dedicate to paying attention to it because they're not trying to figure out, splitting hairs on the teams that actually get in as much. But I just thought that was an interesting comment. And it's always been a thing. And it's always been annoying. But I just think, especially when you're talking about and that's part of again what we've done with these conferences. They're enormous. You're gonna play some good teams if you make it all the way through your tournament or towards the end of it. You're gonna have some good wins on your resume. Shouldn't that impact a little bit? Where you end up sitting in the bracket? If you just went on a 5-game run and beat two top 15 teams or whatever in your conference tournament, and then it doesn't change that you go from you could have been you're an 8-9 and you could have moved up to a 6. Wouldn't you be pissed off as a team like that? I just think it's kind of stupid that doesn't get any weight at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost back to the timing thing you just mentioned, and it's why you get that with that many teams, and that's a lot of work to do. They always say it isn't an easy job, whatever. But I mean, if you're not factoring in, what are you really doing then? So I know you got to do probably the bulk of your work, far in advance, but you still need to, that stuff needs to matter and factor in. Otherwise, let's just not have them. Just get rid of the conference tournament winners, I guess, with the majors, because you'd still have to have them with the smaller conferences because they're not going to get in just off their resume ever. But maybe just get rid of them then and just play a few more conference games instead. And because that's if you're gonna kind of base it off your conference record in the regular season to not get in the tournament, but you don't even play every team twice. You only play every team once. You play a couple of them twice, at least in the bigger ones, with the 18 teams. So is that really a true judge of how you are against your conference when you only place? And what if you get a year where, let's just use the Big Ten, for example, you're playing, Michigan State, Michigan, and freaking, whoever else the third best team there is that year. You're playing them twice, and then you only get to play a Rutgers or a freaking, a Northwestern or a Penn State. You only get to play them once on the road, something like that. Does that a balanced schedule?
Yeah.
Doesn't seem like it. So there's always a counter argument, and I guess that would be mine to the fact of not really factoring in all the games. Because I know it's a short turnaround, quick thing, especially now with the Dayton deal, the Tuesday night play-in games.
Mm-hmm.
That makes it tricky. But hey, you knew that when you started doing that and thought this was a great idea, this first 4. So no one asked you to add that really, and honestly, people just, I guess, kind of got used to it and just said whatever. But I don't think most fans really cared for that when they added those 4 teams. At least from when I remember, it was more what the hell are we doing? We don't need more teams. 64 is plenty.
Yeah, no kidding. And now they're talking about doing more, so we'll get to that bullshit when it happens. But I agree with you. It's kind of crazy. And I guess the other side of it too, I will look at it on the other angle where I also don't believe that one loss that you end up having in the conference tournament should absolutely destroy you either. But we have seen that happen. Don't tell me that hasn't happened to a team before. They need to win a game in the tournament to get in. Okay, so it does matter? When does it matter? That's the thing.
And that doesn't make any sense either. It's you played 30 plus games or whatever, but one matters that much more than the previous 30. So it's just almost kind of talking out both sides of your mouth, whatever type of thing. What really matters, this or that?
And usually it's a game against another team that's in a similar spot in the conference. It's not all that impressive of a win, but I edged out Illinois this week. Oh, that gets me in, I guess. Whatever. Just kind of goofy. There's 1,000 ways to argue it, obviously, and maybe it is different committee by committee. Maybe it is different by committee member by committee member. Maybe some of them do have that in the back of their mind and kind of try to argue it a little bit. Who knows? Like you said, there is an amount of structure that already has to be in place just to be able to fill it out. They already have a pretty good idea of who's in and where they would like to seed them, because you can't do all of that in one day if you were to wait till the very last game is played. But I think as it goes along, you certainly could take a look at some of these conferences as they get done and be like, okay, does this impact, say this team's, should they move the seed a little bit? Maybe swap them with somebody else. That's probably what it would be, be horse trading between a team and another one. But I don't know. It's interesting. We'll see if that ever, does come out of somebody's mouth that it actually is something that impacts it a little bit. I'd be interested to hear that someday. So that was another little thing we wanted to touch on. As far as coming up here this week, it's going to be fun, obviously, to sit down and watch some of these tournaments and see if there is a couple of teams that can make a fun run here in these things. I certainly think that there's a lot of teams that are playing well at the right time, and there's some others that maybe are sputtering at the wrong time as well. It will be interesting. I think there's not a whole lot of teams, I guess, that I have in my mind that I'm really like, oh, I need to see what they can do. Obviously, the one that I follow the most in the Big 12, I just think is intriguing because I feel like there's a lot of teams that are kind of in the same ballpark as far as how their season has gone, what their skill level is. I think there's a good solid 5 to 6 teams that you could theoretically make an argument are going to win the tournament next week. So that's what makes it fun. Now, which ones kind of put it together at the right time, I guess, is what I'm interested to see happen. Obviously, Kansas is still a wild card. They're still a team that has talent. They won a nice game over the weekend over Arizona, who's another good team. Arizona's so streaky with the way that they score that's what has kind of be weird, interesting, I guess, for me to see is like, can they put that together at the right time for them? Houston's obviously been the most consistent team. They do a little bit of everything well, so they're scary. I do think that they are the prohibited favorite probably to win it. But then also, the team that I follow, Iowa State, so up and down. Like, 1 week they can look like the team that's easily could win it and get to very far in the tournament, and then the next week, don't look like they know what they're doing on the offensive end at all. So it's going to be interesting to see where they go. I guess for that tournament in particular, I think it's going to be about who turns it on at the right time. Obviously, Iowa State usually ends up with an advantage because of the crowd following that comes down there and kind of gets them going at that tournament. But there certainly are a lot of teams, I think, that could come away with the win in that league, in my opinion.
Yeah, for teams, I guess, to be, I mean, and I'm not even going to mess with, like, of course, your Floridas, your Dukes, your Auburns, Houston. I mean, come on, like, we don't need to, like, that's kind of like a given. I'm not going to take the easy road there. Of course, they need to all have good showings if they want to stay on that one line, because those are teams that probably have a good shot of being a 1 seed. But so I'm just going to kind of pick, I guess, like that next tier of teams that I think if they happen to go on a run, could really put themselves not only like in a little better seating move to that 2 line, probably in most cases, or even just get that momentum going, which is that's all it's about.
Yeah.
I mean, all these teams are, when it comes talent wise, of course, you're going to have, a couple here or there that just like, maybe have like a, like flag at Duke or whatever. There's like a 1-2 player that's kind of like a game changer. But other than that, it's a lot of it's just about momentum and how well you're playing at that time. You keep that carrying over because it's a short window here between games, and you got to win a game and turn around and play somebody different within 24 hours or sometimes, less than that or maybe a little bit more. So that's what it is. And the 3 teams, I guess, the kind of I was going to pick out here that I thought maybe could really do some good work here in the next week or so would be would Maryland in the Big Ten. Just the way for them, it's like they've got like 6'10" dudes that can freaking move, and like how many
Mm-hmm.
people have that? You know what I mean? They just that
Yeah.
athleticism is a tough matchup. I don't think they're the best team overall, but they do have good guards. But this those big men, like, teams don't even have freaking players like that, let alone players that actually play in the post. So that's a big game changer, I think. And then I was gonna, before you brought them up, I think Iowa State's got a good shot here to really move themselves and get hot at the right time of the year. And then Memphis, of course, I guess they're considered a mid-major. They've proved it, several times in the tournament's gone on runs and had some, really big key names come out of there in the past, and even, inches away from a national title on one occasion. So, but I do think they can make some grandeur because you don't hear a lot of talk about them, which is kind of surprising to me. I mean, I know they're not in the Premier League that some of these other teams are, but I do think that they have a fairly talented roster that could like just an athletic kind of mismatch for some teams, and could become a nightmare. And then one other team, I guess I just throw out there too, just to give you one more back in the Big Ten as well. Yeah, say it sounds weird. A former member of the Conference of Champions is UCLA. They had a bit of a lull there, especially with their coach kind of just felt like he wanted to be the Dabo Sweeney of college basketball and just mouthing off week after week. But seems like they've kind of got things put together. Another team with athletic bigs that will, get in the paint and kind of rough you up, and that's always been what Cronin's kind of deal is the physical type of team. Defense first, I guess that mentality, which some games doesn't look pretty, but I mean, hey, you get the win, you get the win. So those are probably a couple of teams that I think if get on a run here, they could really do some damage in the tournament. Move yourself up to a little bit more of a favorable matchup there in the second round is kind of what your goal is here, because they're obviously in. You always want some more hardware, so a conference championship trophy would be nice. And I think all those teams, especially of course Memphis, because they're the odds-on favorite, but even the other three, they have a legit shot at bringing that trophy home. So I think that just the momentum thing though is the biggest. Of course, you want the trophy, but you get to playing right at the right time of year, and you don't want to going on a bad note. I don't think that'll happen with either of these teams.
Yeah, I like the ones that you mentioned, and one of them that I did have in mind, kind of in that same line, is the first one you brought up. That Maryland team is interesting. They just have a mix, yeah, that I don't think anybody else has as far as like the pieces that they have out on the floor. Is it the recipe to win? Who knows? That's the question. Usually it ends up being the guards that carry the day when it comes to winning in the tournament. But yeah, they have the other guys. They've got the big dudes that can move up and down the floor, bully you out of the way, finish well. They're guys that are coordinated too. They're not just big for big sake. So yeah, they're fun to watch. I do like them. There is another team too that I would mention in the Big Ten that I also think is kind of scary, just because of, well, a little bit of their history, but just the way that they've trended this year too, and that's Wisconsin. They started off the season, kind of an afterthought, like, oh, this isn't their year. They're just kind of having a rough time. But, the kid from Omaha there, Tanji, he's obviously a good player. It really has fit well in that system there. And they've got some good young guys, too, that have really come on. So they're playing better at the right time of the season. And when it comes this time of year, they're one of those teams, just like Michigan State, that seems to turn it on come postseason play. And the way that they always play defense makes a difference for some teams, too, slowing them down. So that would be a team that I would keep a little bit of an eye on, too, out of that league. The other one or I guess the other two that I would mention too, I think Missouri's kind of a wild card. They're just they've had so many games where like they just come out of nowhere and play like out of their minds for a night, and like they can look really really good, and then they can turn around and not be in a game the whole game. So they're really weird to try to pinpoint. I don't know that they have the right mix for tournament winning. I wouldn't put a lot of, I guess, weight on them, but I do think they are a wild card kind of team that can shake things up. And then I also feel the same way about Marquette. Like they're super talented. They can play with anybody, it seems like, but do they get over the hump? It just seems like those last few minutes of every game, they never quite make the right plays to win the big games. But they certainly have the talent, I think, to compete and win some games in this tournament once they get in. So those are a couple of the ones that I wanted to mention and be fun to watch. But yeah, I think there's a lot of teams in that range. It just seems like more so than maybe a lot of other years that are kind of in that middle range that can really jump up, and you could see them winning a lot of games and maybe even winning the whole thing if the cards fall right, just because, the top is really good, but at the same time, we know, just like most years recently, that we don't have those dominant teams that you just are like locked in on. Yeah, for sure they're going to win the tournament kind of deal. That just doesn't happen anymore. There are a few that I obviously think are, got the hands up and the leg up. When you're talking about an Auburn, you're talking about a Houston. Those kinds of teams, I think, are the ones that everybody else has to beat, but they are beatable. So that's what's going to be interesting for this tournament.
And not to do with anything on the court, but we didn't talk about the back-to-back champs at all, Connecticut.
Yeah.
But this may be the time where that coach has not done himself any favors. So if you don't care for that guy, which that's a good bulk of the college basketball fan base, here's your chance to maybe to put some salt in his wounds, because it may be a tough march for those folks up there in Connecticut.
Yeah, that's true. That'll be something to watch for sure. So that was some of the things we wanted to touch on as far as NCAA basketball and tournament stuff to get you geared up. I mentioned already some of those picks that I had talked about. I did want to go back and give you a chance, SJ. I know you probably don't want to, because I went and looked at the recap myself, but not so good on the fights. Yeah.
One of those nights, we'll just label it as that. And honestly, like, the only one that I was really kind of surprised about was the main event, where not the fact they get the knockout, the champion Pereira, but it was the fact that it was just such a boring, ugly fight. And I think a lot of people think he still won the decision. So that's one of those. It's like, it's part of the game, but it does suck. I hate when leave it to judges. Gaethje proved me, I'm glad he won. I kind of wanted to lean that way, I said, but that chin was making me nervous. And he had a good fight, ended up winning by decision. But I wish when you see these interviews beforehand and stuff, sometimes it's like some fighters will say, "Oh, I'm thinking about retiring," or whatever. And I wish Turner, who ended up retiring after he lost, I picked him as the underdog, which that was kind of my long shot. But he ended up retiring after the fight, like immediately after. So I was like, I'm guessing he was thinking that ahead of time. So I wish maybe I should have. I didn't see anything. Maybe I missed it. I don't, miss too much, but maybe I missed that clip. But if he'd have said that, then I definitely would have just hammered the other guy. And knowing that, I thought maybe he had one more. I thought he had another good run in him here to maybe end his career, but I guess he feels like he's not there. And then, of course, the fight that I was probably the most confident in, ends up getting called off and didn't fight. So there you that when that happened, I was like, it kind of leaves a little bit of a gets you a little nervous for the rest of the night, because like not off to a good start. But we did end up hitting a little something on the ponies. So that made the night a little better. A little simulcast action. But yeah, the fights were not kind over the weekend. But you have those nights. They're just one of those. That's how it goes.
Yeah. And a couple of them, like you said, I guess, close to what you were thinking, just didn't quite, finish the way that you had predicted it to. So that's how it goes. But yeah, that was kind of our recap from what we had on the picks here for you earlier. Obviously, this upcoming week, we will try to take a look here at some of these conference tournaments. It might be a little bit, goofy. I don't know. I'm not sure how we're going to exactly play this, because it'll all be going on at different times, and probably some of the games will already be in the books by the time we do kind of make some picks. But we'll probably just do it out of what's left, what we know, and see, who we think might win some of these tournaments coming down the stretch, and at least give you an idea of some things that maybe you can play over the weekend. It may not be exactly just saying, hey, take this team to win the tournament. Maybe it'll be, hey, take this team to win this game in this tournament, or put it together with this other one in this conference. So we'll figure some stuff out and throw it at you later this week. So pay attention, and of course, like, subscribe, get the notifications on the YouTube channel, because that's where we do that. So we'll have that up there for you. Obviously, we would love if you continue to like and share this podcast as well. Every day we're covering, it's available for you on all the major platforms, including our host at Spotify. Before we finish up, I did want to mention this story. This is one we kind of held over from last week, and just kind of an interesting little side story here in the gambling world. There was an individual from Pennsylvania that had won a $57,000 casino jackpot, but he had self-excluded himself from playing casino games in Pennsylvania. So come to find out later, they obviously, the casino made a mistake, let him in the door in the first place. That was their fault, not his. He went through the proper procedures to do what he was supposed to do for himself. But he gets in, he wins, and then they say they're not going to give him his money, because he's self-excluded himself. I don't know. I mean, you're getting into some ethical questions here, and to me, it's like, obviously you don't. I don't know. It's hard because you don't want to encourage, the guy's problem, which you kind of are doing if you're giving him money that he wins. But the fact that you let him in is your fault. So the fact that he won, shouldn't that still be allowed? Like, he was there.
Yeah, nothing's slipping by the goalie in these casinos. You got cameras up your nostrils when you walk through the door. So that, to me, that's like the fact that, we didn't notice, like that. if that's the argument, no, not accepting it. There's no way that's happening because tell you a story here. Just myself not long ago visited a place on my birthday and played a little bit just to see, well, get some promotions, whatever, and try to win some money, make the day a little bit better. Uh, I'm walking out and the guy flags me down. I'm like, I didn't do anything, so I'm like not really worried. I was like, how you doing? He's like, oh, here, here's a birthday voucher for you to use at the restaurant. So then he was like, "Oh yeah, we've been trying to find you. We saw you on the cameras, and we were tracking you down." So to me, just myself, like I mean, I know going to these places you're on camera all the time. It's like it's a surprise to me, but the fact that they were able to, you know,
Yeah.
get me, track me down and get me a card and was very much appreciated. And I was like, I didn't expect it, but I was like, you never know what you're gonna get there. A lot of things they want to spend your day there or whatever. But I was just like, man, they found me in like 5 minutes, and it's not a huge place, but still like So then I was thinking about that when I was thinking about this story where they had to have known he was in there from the moment he got out of his car, basically. And then for the fact that he played, how long do you think he had to play for to win that?
Well, yeah.
I doubt it was a one spin type of deal. And I'd like to know like what kind of how much he put in and what was his per bet amount and that type of thing. Like it almost seems like somebody probably maybe wasn't informed. Maybe as an employee that's not familiar with the system. Maybe somebody new that's monitoring it. Either way, though, like if he's gonna play that long to win that much money, I mean, whether he's on a list or not, I mean, I think I don't know, like there's got to be there's got to be some, even if he just takes like a legal action or something. I don't know because even the fact that they let him in, maybe he doesn't get the winnings, but they go after their policies and kind of
Yeah.
go that route, like some type of civil suit or something. So I don't know. I just like it's very strange that there's no way. Even you can go to the jankiest like the casinos where they play war on on freaking Vegas vacation, and you're not getting nothing's getting by them,
Mm-hmm.
let alone a bigger entity.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Yeah, and that's an interesting side to it too. I wonder, like you might, yeah, call up some representation, be like, okay, give me my jackpot, or waste X amount of dollars fighting me in a court case that you're going to probably lose, and I'm going to get money out of you anyway. So, I don't know. That's an
Yeah, because it
interesting.
almost seems very kind of almost predatory, like the story we read up where they were kind of texting that individual, and she said that they were just kind of almost like preying on her, gambling addiction,
Mm-hmm.
sending her all these, oh, come on, come back,
Yeah.
basically sweetening the pot, giving her all these, discounts or free play and all that. And it's not the same thing, but it's almost like kind of going after that same vulnerable individual, which you don't want to see that. Like that's not a good way to go about your business.
Yeah, 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 and like you said, yeah, obviously we all are well aware in the world we live in today that we're always being watched and followed, and our information's out there. Obviously, if we're going into these places, you have to give your information to them to be able to enter, anyways. And then a lot of people, of course, are taking advantage of getting into a reward system or whatever, so they got
Right.
your details, like they know you, and that's why yeah, the technology that's out there, you know what you're getting yourself into, I guess, is what we kind of give up a little bit of that, what we call self sense of freedom, because we know what we're doing and we know what their operation is doing. So yeah, and that's why the guy's flagging you down to give you a happy birthday card, like that's the way it goes. We expect that now. So yeah, definitely interesting. I don't know, I haven't followed up hardcore with searching on this deal to see if there has been some more movement on it since the initial story. I'm sure we'll hear more about how that comes to a resolution, but definitely brings up some interesting talking points and thoughts about the just gaming in general. So we want to throw that out there for you before we send you off here into the sunset. We hope that you obviously are ready to enjoy this tournament run here in some basketball. I know myself getting an opportunity. Hopefully, I'm praying my team's got to win a couple of games for me to go to see the game that I'm going to try to watch here at the end of this upcoming week. So hopefully they come through for me. But yeah, I'm excited. I'm going to try to go see a little bit of the Big 12 tourney. So I hope there'll be a lot of that fun stuff for you to take in wherever you may be and whatever you may follow, whatever conference you're trying to follow. So it's exciting stuff. Good time of year for sports fans, and it provides some good fodder for everybody at the office. That's for sure. That's what we got for you here this week. Again, we'll get on those picks later on this week, talking about conference tournament time. Of course, then we'll have lots to talk about after that once the bracket gets set and we can dive into the big dance and get into all that mess. And I think we're going to have a couple of fun things along those lines for you to possibly participate in as well. So be on the lookout for that also. Make sure you share the podcast with all your friends. We'd appreciate it. And then, of course, follow us on social media at SGMBets, at Cherokee CP. Those are our handles there on Twitter, so you can follow us there. And we'll probably be putting out some other plays before we speak to you next as well on that platform. That's SG Munoz. I'm Chris Parks. Thanks for joining us for another week of Every Day We're Covering. We'll see you next time for some more covers.